Hello everyone, I am Gimmick Quattro and welcome back to my channel. And in today's video we are going to be starting off a new series, and that new series is Funky Decks. Every Friday I'll be posting a video of a funky deck that I have come up with that may or may not make any sense to anybody, with combinations of archetypes that do not belong together whatsoever, but I still find a way to mash them together and find a little bit of fun or synergies out of them. In today's video, though, we have to start off with a deck true to my heart, and that is Gimmick Puppets. But as you can tell, it's definitely not a pure build of Gimmick Puppets. I do have a pure build that I can show you guys at some point in time if you would want to see it. There's also videos on my channel of more pure builds that you can check out. This one is not a pure build. This is the most competitively viable build that I have, and it's still barely rogue tier at best. The deck consists of 3 main engines, is that right? Predaplant, Gimmick Puppets, Dogmatika, no, 4, and DPE. 4 engines is what is consistent inside this deck. And so we're going to talk about each engine and its individuality, why it's in the deck in the first place. Then I will tell you things that you could do to make the deck better. First and foremost, the engine I will talk about is the predaplant engine. That consists of 3 Lonefire Blossom, 2 Orpheus Scorpio, 2 Darlington Cobra, 3 Predaprime Fusion, 2 Trifo Overton, and Greedy Venom Fusion Dragon, and obviously Verte. So the main function of this portion of the deck is to special summon Orpheus Scorpio to either normal special summon Orpheus Scorpio to go into Darlington Cobra, which then can net you one of your 2 fusion spells, being either Fusion Destiny or Predaprime Fusion, in which then you can play the fusion spell to get to your end. Usually, though, you're picking up the Fusion Destiny just because then you can go into DPE and still hold up 2 monsters on board. You could use those 2 monsters to either go into Verte or the newly added the Dark Charmer Gloomy. Yeah, I hate to say this. I completely forgot to add this card to my deck. I've been playing this deck for a very long time, but at the time when I built the deck, I just didn't have the means to have him, and I kept needing him to put him into the deck, and it just never happened until now, like today. So I'm going to be showing you some replays of the deck to show you all some of the highlights of what the deck can do. And he will not show up at all, but he is a fantastic option for the deck. I mean, an amazing option for this deck. And I'll go into more of that later on. But to continue on with the Predaplant portion of the deck. So really their main functionality is to go into Verte to activate Fusion Destiny or just to rip it out of the deck. But they also can swarm the board enough, and if they can stay on the board long enough, then you can use Predaprime Fusion to go into one of their bigger monsters. The second part of the deck to talk about would be, I guess, the Dogmatika engine, consisting of 2 Ecclesia, 1 Fleur-de-Lis, 2 Dogmatika, and 2 Titaniclad. So this engine, you could take it or leave it. The main reason why it's in the deck is at the time when I built the deck, and I haven't changed the deck much since I built it, this was a big engine to kind of have around, and it was a cheap enough option from cards that I pulled or could craft at the time for like interruptions or getting a big body out on the field and stuff like that, and to kind of get things moving inside the deck on a different part to kind of like deck thin in a way. This part of the engine, or this part of the deck, is probably the biggest part you could take out if you wanted to add in things like more hand traps, Harpy's Feather Duster, better traps or spell and trap removal, or things like that. Like, these are like at least, yeah, these are like the 5 pieces from the main deck and 2 pieces from the side deck that you could take out and change up the deck pretty significantly if you did that. If you wanted to, you could take them all out and add in more predaplant cards to maybe go stronger on that engine. You could add in more Destiny Hero stuff to go a little bit stronger on that engine. You could add in more generic staples. But that would be a part of the deck that I would see taking out. It doesn't come up very often. When it does, it can be very helpful. But it's a little bit outdated. So take it or leave it type of a deal. I still don't mind it. I'll goof around with a couple of other deck ideas at some point in time with it out. And if I find something that's better or like slightly more consistent, then I'll talk about that later down the line. Maybe as like a recap video or something like that, or like a let's look back on this deck and see what I've done with it type of a deal, maybe later on in this series. The third part and the strongest part of the deck is the Destiny Hero DPE portion. Basically, it's anything to facilitate DPE, and that's 1 copy of Denier, 2 copies of Dasher, 2 copies of Fusion Destiny, and 2 copies of DPE. It's pretty straightforward why you want to play this card. That's what it is. It's straightforward why I'm playing it. It's a good card. It's an easy enough part of the deck for me to get to. And, like, Denier can special summon stuff out of the graveyard, which can be really nice just for board swarming. To go into other plays with the Link monsters. Dasher has a chance to special summon himself. You know, there's like... It's just a nice part of the engine. That's it. Why do we gotta complain? You know why it's here. Now, the main part of the deck, or the part of the deck that holds the most cards to it, is the Gimmick Puppet / number portion of the deck. I'm going to mix those two together just because they're the only number monsters in the deck are the Gimmick Puppet monsters. And it's a nice place to put in Astral Kribo. So 3 copies of Astral Kribo. It just adds a little extra protection mainly, and a special summon with himself to go into Gimmick Puppet, Giant Grinder, and Leo. But the extra protection is really nice if I want to just sit on those cards for a second. Then we have 2 Terror Baby, 3 Dreary Doll, 3 Bisque Doll, 3 Junk Puppet, 2 Condolence Puppet, 1 Chimera, 2 Giant Grinder, and 1 Leo. So, Gimmick Puppets, there's a fairly decent size archetype. There's a lot of cards. There's a lot of other options I could play. The main reason why I'm playing these cards from the deck that I am playing are pretty straightforward. And that's because Terror Baby has an extra effect. There's 2 good things about it. When it's normal summon, I could special summon a Gimmick Puppet monster from my graveyard, which is huge. Also, it has a graveyard effect in which your opponent cannot activate cards or effects in response to the activation of Gimmick Puppet monsters. So if I really want to go off on that portion of the engine, then I can uninterrupted, which is really nice. And it's the newest card alongside a Bisque and Condolence that came out for the deck a few years back, and they're just a really nice part of the engine. Dreary Doll, you kind of need it. It's a special summon from the graveyard within itself, and it's a level 8 to facilitate the rank 8 plays. Bisque Doll is a special summon from hand. You can also banish it from the graveyard, in which your Gimmick Puppet monsters cannot be targeted by card effects, which is nice. Secondary protection as well from the graveyard. Plus, it's also a level 8 to facilitate the rank 8 plays. Junk Puppet is just a free special summon of a Gimmick Puppet monster from the graveyard, only activated once per turn. And Condolence Puppet can only be activated once per turn, but you can send multiple Gimmick up to, it's 1 plus if your opponent has special summon monsters, you can dump Gimmick Puppet monsters from your deck to the graveyard. So, let me just straighten this out for a second. Condolence Puppet, you activate it. If your opponent has special summon no monsters, you can just dump 1 Gimmick Puppet monster from your deck to the graveyard. Say if your opponent has special summon 2 monsters, or like 1 monster on their turn instead of none, you can dump 2 Gimmick Puppet monsters from your deck to the graveyard, and so on and so forth, depending on the amount of times your opponent has special summoned. It also has an added graveyard effect in which you can banish this card, and a 1 machine Xyz monster you control cannot be destroyed by your opponent card effect while that card is on the field. So it's just a nice, like, you could add on that protection onto either one of these guys, and it could be really, really nice just to have it on there. It's also just a nice way to start facilitating some of the Gimmick Puppet plays by getting them out of the deck and into the graveyard, because you really more or less want to see some of them in the graveyard to start. Woo! The extra deck monsters, they just make sense. This destroys special summons. This is just a really nice body with a really funny win condition if you can pull it off. And Chimera very rarely comes up, but it lets you get a Gimmick Puppet monster from your deck to your hand and be able to special summon it out, in which you could do further plays in theory. Actually, no, you are restricted if you do this. It doesn't come up very often, but it can come up, so it's not terrible to have at least 1 copy in the deck. The other parts of the deck: 1 Ash, 1 Ghost Spell, 1 Lightning Storm. They're just the best things I had at the time for hand traps and card destruction and stuff like that. And then 2 Allure of Darkness, just because it's nice for the draw power. If there's something I really don't need in my hand and I have Allure, it's just nice to be able to go deeper into the deck. I wanted to talk a little bit about Dark for a second. This card is fantastic. Just 2 monsters, as long as one of them is Dark, that's not a problem for this deck whatsoever. Being able to take a card of my opponent's graveyard and add it to this and put it onto my field can help me facilitate other plays, take important pieces out of their graveyard. You kind of understand how that works. But the most important part is if this card is destroyed, whether by battle or by card effect, get 1 Dark monster with 1500 or less defense from your deck to your hand. Every single Dark monster in this deck I can pull out using this card, using this effect. So it's huge. It's absolutely amazing, and I could facilitate. It could really help out with plays for next turn. So that is the deck. That was a really long talking about the deck. You feel free to skip over it. If you just wanted to look at the deck profile, you can. Now you can just skip over the top of that, and we are going to look at a couple of replays. Some of them are longer, some of them are shorter. I'm probably only going to stick with like 3. The first 2 are going to be longer ones, but the last one will be a bit shorter. But these kind of show off some parts of the deck that it just kind of can show what the deck can do and how resilient it can be. So the first one we will go into is this one. I probably won't end up commentating too much over top of the replays, but I may jump in every once in a while and say something. But I really just want you guys to watch the replays and get a feel for them. But I will be putting them on speed up. I don't know. Maybe I will talk over top of them. Yeah, I'll talk over top of him. I'll try to commentate the best that I can. I'm just not good at it. So I was really surprised during this duel when I was facing Punk. I hadn't faced a deck in a while, and I just thought I was gonna lose. I really did think I was gonna lose this one, but I'm like, well, we'll give it a shot and just see what we can do. And you're about to see how this turns out. But I'm also extremely confused by some of the choices of cards inside this deck. So if anybody understands why the deck is the way that it is, you can let me know. And you'll see the cards that I'm questioning here pretty soon, I think. Yeah. Why is it Punk Dark World? Is that a thing? Is that like a real deck? Punk Dark World? Or am I being punked? Because this was insane. It was like, this seemed like the weirdest combination, but yet again, I don't know anything much about the Punk cards. As you can tell though, DPE, really good for just constantly bringing itself back onto the field to always have a body and to be able to pop a card on both mine and your opponent's turn. That's why people play DPE. It's a very strong card. But the deck does fairly well at constantly being able to put bodies out on the board, whether through the plant or through the predaplant engine or through the Gimmick Puppet engine. Both of them just do really, really well at its job. Also, that is the reason why I play Ghost Spell. For the very rare occasions of things like Dark showing up, Ghost Spell can be really nice just to handle that. And TPE. Destroy into that. Pop the Dark. Guts the search, but the search is not going to matter much. Danger Dark World Punk. Who knows? Who knows? Who knows? I don't know. I don't know why. It's like cool because like you don't see too much of this type of stuff. They did end up surrendering, so, but you could kind of tell it was mine in the first place. Now we'll move on to Slayer. This is the longest one I'll be showing, but it shouldn't take up too much time. I don't want this video like to exceed like 20-30 minutes or 20-25 minutes. That's the hope is what I'm gonna try to stick all these videos at, but who knows for sure. Definitely no more than 30 minutes, but this is the longest one, and I will say it is against Dark Magician. Which I do like the Dark Magician. I like Dark Magician, I guess, like in concept. But I don't think I'd ever actually play the deck. I'm just not that cliche enough. I guess. I don't know. Like, I don't like Blue Eyes. I've never played the Blue Eyes deck. Never will. I've played the Dark Magician deck a couple of times. It's just not very good. And it also just doesn't feel like something that, like, I enjoy playing the way they do, like, Gimmick Puppets. So, I don't hate the deck by any means. It's just not the deck for me. And here we are seeing why the Dogmatika engine is in the deck and what it can do for the deck. It's the body alone can be so nice. Yes, it sucks restriction outside of the extra deck, and you'll see why here in a minute it sucks. Because, bam, 2 level 8s on the board. I can't rank up and pop any of his monsters that were special summoned with Gear Grinder. If I hadn't done the Fleur-de-Lis play or Ecclesia, I forget which one. I think Fleur-de-Lis locked me out. If I hadn't done that play, then I would have been able to, and I could have cleared his board in that way, which it does suck, but it's fine. And here's... Do I play Condolence here? I do. Maxi did not stop me. I really didn't care enough about Maxi in this situation. Just because, I mean, a lot of times decks nowadays, it feels like, can get whatever card they want anyways. So why does it matter if they're drawing a couple of extra cards? Like, I do understand to some extent, but also Amblo Whale was originally in the... Is it still in the deck? It is still in the deck. You can get rid of Emblem Mail if you wanted to. If you wanted to upgrade to something different, you can. I don't really know why I'm playing it. It's just there, and it's kind of funny. You could, and I think it was like one of the only cards I had at the time when I built the deck, and it just kind of like worked out. But if you wanted to play in like anything different or better that makes more sense, then do so. I've considered just jumping and just putting in like access code talker. If I feel like I can consistently make it enough, it would be a nice extra boss. So, which the deck doesn't do bad at putting out monsters, as you've seen. So like access code talker really isn't like an unreasonable thing to think about inside this deck. You could always get rid of like the dogmatika engine entirely, and maybe add in like a small Cybers engine that can help you just facilitate into access code. I don't know what that engine would be off the top of my head, but if there's like a 5-card Cybers engine that could consistently get to access code talker that you could put in the deck, you could totally just do that. It's not a terrible option. And it does give you another boss monster in the deck. At the end of the day, it's just a multiple pops and a big body, but as you can see from Destroyer, that's sometimes the only thing that you really need. So, take it or leave it, I guess. I might try it. I might see if there's something I could do with it, because that would be a really cool idea to help kind of like beef up the deck. But so yeah, the deck, it doesn't do terrible at putting out decent sized bodies and constantly having things on the board. It just doesn't do great with like heavy board wipes. Like, it doesn't reestablish a board very quickly, like very well. Some hands do, but very few and far between. It does need to keep pieces up on the board for it to constantly be making plays. And no, I'm still not sure always right now what is the best option, going first or going second with this deck. It does fine through either or, as long as you know what cards to play to bait out things like Ash. And I think that's like most of the time my biggest concern. This is the most common board you will see ended on. Like, that play right there is pretty close to the most common play that you will see this deck make. And it's not a bad play. And there are definitely some situations in which you come around to your next turn, like you're about to see here, and you will still have these cards, have access to these cards. So if I'm able to get into Predaprime Fusion, I mean, that's access to another really big monster from the extra deck onto the board. But I think what ends up happening here is I go into Verte. No, I can't because of the Fleur-de-Lis. No, I can? No, I can. Okay. Yeah, Anaconda. I mean, once you've seen it once, you've seen it all. And here you see me go into this guy. He's not bad. He's a really good body with a decent effect. And that's a pretty common way you can also see going into him. Like, Denier is really nice that he can just put himself back on the board as a special summon, because it's not that hard to get up at least 2 bodies, so he would be a decent third for Predaprime Fusion. Now, this was my third one I showed you guys. Yeah, this was my third one. So, like, that right there, I'm gonna end it here. That right there is, those 3 are some of the more decent examples that you can see of what the deck does do. It's not perfect by any means. It's definitely a deck meant for fun and like don't try to think of this as like, oh, I'm trying to make like these crazy competitive decks that you should take to a tournament and try out, because I'm not saying that, and I don't want this video to come across as that way. I'm really just showing off decks that I have fun playing, that I found funky, weird ways to combine certain decks together, just to, and that I like, you know, and I just thought maybe other people would be interested in it. There's something else I want to say, that I forgot, that I just thought about. Originally, in the past, I have tried to build a more strict version of this deck, being just Gimmick Puppets and Predaplants. The reason why I like the combination of those two decks together is because of the usual, like, Gimmick Puppets find themselves very easy to being either level 8 or making themselves level 8. And the Predaplant engine, a lot of their fusion cards do like having level 8 monsters for either some of their fusions or from some of the plays that they can make. So I do have a more of just a purebred mixture of that deck as well. Somewhere I have a list. But that's like the main, like the start of all of this was the actual combination of those two decks together and the interesting plays that that deck could make. But I wanted to make it a little bit stronger, so that's why I ended up cutting out a lot of the Predaplant, like just sticking with the core Predaplant engine, and cutting out some of the Gimmick Puppet dolls that were just not or Gimmick Puppets that were just not necessary, and going with more like engine stuff to help facilitate like stronger plays. If there is a deck combination you guys would like to see, leave it down in the comments, and I will do my best to create them. I'm going to put this out there as well. I'm not good at this game. I'm not good at deck building. I'm not going to act like I am. I'm sure there's a much better build you can even make of just this deck alone. There's probably better Predaplant monsters you could do. There's probably better Destiny Hero monsters you could use, whatever. There's probably better things that you could do than the things that I've created. This is just strictly for fun. If somebody finds a way to make these decks a little bit more competitive without going too far out of the way of the original core of the deck, then please, I would like to see them. That'd be really cool. If there is any decks you guys want to see me try and build combinations, I will look into it, and I will do my best to figure it out. I do have a couple of decks in the tank already. That's the main reason why I started this series, because I already had a few in my mind that I wanted to try out, and I still have a couple more that are going inside my mind right now. I will be leaving a hint at the end of this video. Somewhere on screen, I will put a hint up for what next week's episode is going to be. If you guys can figure out what it is, let me know down in the comments as well. I will not be telling you if you're right or wrong, but you can still make your guesses down below. And yeah, so this video was a little bit longer than I wanted it to be, but it's okay. If you guys like this video, like the concept of this video, please hit the like button. It's really going to show me that like you people want to see more of this. And comment down below. I mean, comments in any regard, whether it's things that you want to see me do or anything else, as long as they're positive comments, please, or constructive criticism in a nice way, is really going to help out my channel if you guys want to help me out and stuff like that. And I really do want to try and be more consistent. So the more that you guys interact with my videos, the more consistent I'm willing and wanting to be. Thank you guys for watching. If you made it to the end of this video, you are blessed. And I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.